Glad you could join us again today. I'm very excited about my guest today. With me today is John Gentry. He is a constitutional Republican, and he is an independent candidate for governor here in Tennessee in the 2022 governor's election. John, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into the questions.
Sure. My work is about restoring the voice of people in government. I mean, literally, that is the heart of my work. We have a constitutional right in the Tennessee Constitution, Article 1, Section 1. We have a right to reform government or alter our form of government. It is a constitutional right that we have. And in Section 31, we have a right to exercise sovereignty. And in Section 23, we have a right to instruct our representatives. What my work is about is to teach the people, how do we lawfully, peacefully exercise these rights? A little bit about myself personally. I was a Force Recon Marine for 8 years. I'm a warrior in the purest sense of the word. I've been a businessman since I left the military. Graduated cum laude from the University of Maryland, top 10% of my class, and was licensed as a certified public accountant the first time that I took the CPA exam, which is something that less than 10% of students taking the test pass the first time around. And what my work is about is putting people back in power. And this is not just empty talk. I mean, literally, I'm showing the people how to take back control of our government, how to be the ultimate check and balance of power with the people overseeing government. And fundamental to my work, in order to restore the voice of the people in government, is to take down rampant corruption that is going on in our legislative houses and in our judiciary. So that's a little bit about John Gentry for governor.
Okay. Great. And, that's me as well. And I want to inform people about our rights as, as citizens, our birthright from God. Our rights come from God and not the government. And governments, the only powers they have comes from us. And we're the controller of those rights. And we got to learn how to pull back on those rights from all levels of government. So you hit on it a little bit. So the first question I want to ask you is, please explain why you decided to run for governor.
I started out standing up against corruption in our judiciary, and I took 2 cases to the Supreme Court of the United States. And I could not get justice because I was seeking justice against a corrupt judiciary. And so then I took it to the legislative houses. And I learned that our judiciary is corrupt because of the corruption that's going on in our legislative houses. And so I used my campaign as a platform to teach the people how to take down that corruption. And that's basically, why I started running, is to get things back on track. And as my knowledge expanded, the more that I studied, reading the Federalist Papers, reading our state and federal constitutions, going back and reading the actual debates when they were discussing our Bill of Rights. I have transcripts from the first Congress talking about the right to instruct representatives that they did not put in our federal constitution, but that they put it in our state constitution. And the more that I learned, the more that I realized how much knowledge has been oppressed, and that we have basically become failure as a people to perform proper civic duty over government. So my campaign has kind of expanded from using it as a platform to take down corruption, but also to educate the people and to teach them about what their rights are, to expose the corruption that's going on in government, and to teach the people how to do something about that corruption.
Great. Thank you. And I hear you some of your videos that you have online on Facebook. Some of them that I've seen is the right to regress. I mean, to address the government about things that's going on, and I hear you use the term remonstrance quite often. Can you explain that?
Absolutely. You know, this right is in the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. And there's a reason that the founders put it in the First Amendment. It's literally, this right is the cornerstone of our constitutional system. And here we are. We don't know what this right is. There's a book I have. This was written in 1883 by a Supreme Court justice. And he said, for this right to be oppressed, that the spirit of liberty must have wholly disappeared. And the people have become so servile and debased as to no longer be fit to exercise any of the privileges of free men. That's quite an admonishment from an 1883 justice about our people today, that if you let this right be oppressed, just shut up and do what you're told. You don't even deserve to vote. That if you allow this right, and here it is, nobody knows what this right is about. Let me share my screen, and I'm going to show this to you in the Tennessee Constitution here. So this is the Tennessee Constitution. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right, let me get to, oh, wrong section. There we go. Sorry. So this is a constitutional right that we have. Is that big enough for you? Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So it says citizens have a right in a peaceable manner to assemble together for our common good, to instruct our representatives, and to apply to those invested with the powers of government for redress of grievance or other proper purposes. Now, the First Amendment, it's a right to petition for redress of grievance. In Tennessee Constitution, this right is expanded to other proper purposes, and it's by oral address. We have a constitutional right to address any body of government or any person in government for proper purpose or redress of a grievance, or we can do it in a written remonstrance. So let me share. This is the second document that I filed in the Tennessee General Assembly. So this one, you can see, this is a letter from Representative Johnny Garrett, he's my district representative. So in this letter, he's saying, please receive this application by John Gentry of Sumner County. And it's a brief statement about what this thing is about. You don't have to get all fancy like I did with the special fonts or anything. That's not necessary. But this is all it is. Very simple document. I'm saying a large number of citizens from across the state, we're asserting our right to address the General Assembly. And we're in the second paragraph, we're also asserting our right to due course of law, justice administered without delay, and our right to instruct our representatives. And then what it's about. This application made by good citizens seeks resolution of the members to welcome petitions and remonstrances and to hear and decide them as required by our Tennessee Constitution. And let me see, I want to show you, this is the announcement of my first remonstrance. Let me see if I can, it's just a quick 39-second video. But this 39 seconds, this literally shook the foundations of corruption in government.
Next order, Mr. Clerk. Petitions and memorials. Mr. Clerk. Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Rule 15, we have a brief statement regarding a petition of remonstrance statement filed by Representative Hulsey. It reads, I'm approaching the Tennessee House Chief Clerk on behalf of Mr. John Gentry with this petition and statement. Involves a petition of grievances. 1, unconstitutional and void statutes. 2, failure to address grievances. 3, judicial reform. 4, reinstitution of constitutionally guaranteed rights. Signed, Bud Halsey, Tennessee State Representative.
So is that amazing that a citizen was heard on the floor of the House? Have you ever seen anything like that in your entire life?
No, not unless somebody invites you down to get some points for their constituent.
Say that again?
Unless your representative or your senator invites you down to get some points for that constituent.
Yeah, and I shoved this one down their throat. Like I went to my district representative, Johnny Garrett, and I said, I'm not asking you. I'm asserting my right to do this, and you're going to go file this with the clerk. And if you don't, I'm going to go to Chancery Court and file a writ of mandamus against you. And I'm going to have the court order you to perform your duty. Now, when we talk about we have a right to reform government, we have the right to exercise sovereignty. You read in section 23, we have a right to instruct our representatives. This is how we do it.
Yeah.
This is how simple it is. And one of the things I guarantee, as elected as governor, I guarantee term limits. The Library of Congress did a study that 82% doesn't matter Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter your race, doesn't matter any demographic. 82% of us across the board want term limits. But no matter who we elect, we never get them. Governor Lee, he did 10 for 10. One of his was that he was going to advocate term limits. We haven't heard a peep out of him since he got elected. Not a single word out of Rhino Lee. So here's how I guarantee it, is I'm going to do like we're doing here. I'm going to do press releases, social media releases, and I want you to co-sign with me a document just like that one that you read, that we're asserting a right. I'm going to have the legislation written up. So we're going to have immediate statutory term limits, as well as I'm going to write up an amendment to the Tennessee Constitution to start that 4-year process. Now, here's how you understand this. And this is from the first Congress discussing the Bill of Rights. And they considered putting in the right to instruct our representatives in our federal Bill of Rights, but they decided not to. But they talked about it an entire day on August 15th, 1797. And what came out of that, it was a Representative Jerry, and he said, by the very construction of the Constitution, we can easily conclude that the framers of it conceived of maladministration of government, and that the right to instruct would be the ultimate check and balance of power. And he said, and I almost know this quote off the top of my head exactly, he said, "Do gentlemen not conceive where the instructions may be so general as to come from all the people? If they do, it is the sovereign will. For gentlemen will not contend that sovereignty is vested in the legislature. The friends and patrons of this Constitution have always held that sovereignty resides in the people, and that they do not part with it on any occasion." Now, what's important to understand is he said, if the instructions come from all the people, it is the sovereign will.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when I put out term limits and I ask the people to co-sign with me, I expect when I explain why we need term limits and when I show the corruption that's going on, I think I'll get at least 95% of my fellow Tennesseans will co-remonstrate to me, and we will present our instructions by oral address to the General Assembly. We will be asserting our right to reform government and our right to alter our form of government and exercise our right of sovereignty. And we will leave them no choice but to immediately enact statutory term limits and to begin the 4-year process. And for any senator or representative that votes against that, they have evidence plainly that they are in violation of their oath to uphold the Constitution, to receive instructions, and to allow the people to exercise their sovereignty. And I'll file articles of impeachment against any one of them that do. I'm not taking any guff off of these guys. You want somebody that's going to stand up to government? There is nobody that has the courage and the knowledge and the integrity to stand up the way John Gentry does to these guys. So that's an example of how we use this right, how we all unite in common purpose, and we exercise our sovereign will, and we do it lawfully, and we do it peacefully, without the need of street protests, without the need of violence, by asserting our constitutional rights. And if we have to, taking that Constitution and shoving it down their throats and making them choke on it.
Right. Okay. Good deal. Thank you with that. Okay. So my second question is, from a governor's point of view, if you being the governor, how would you go about fixing the corruption and lobbying in Nashville? It's awful.
Well, we definitely need some more legislation to prevent the lobbying. But initially what I'll do, every piece of legislation that goes through there has to go through the governor. Now, the governor has a very weak veto power here in Tennessee. It just goes back to the houses and a simple majority passes it. I can tell you, I have looked at a lot of legislation that comes through the General Assembly, and I can tell you about 99% of it is corrupt special interest legislation that's the result of lobbying. And myself as a financial professional, my primary skill is forensic accounting. I can sniff out corruption like a hound dog rooting out a coon on a tree. I am an expert at identifying corruption in legislation. And so what I will do is I will veto it. And the governor has, in order to veto, how it works in Tennessee is the governor states in writing why he won't sign. And then he sends that back to the speakers of both houses. In addition to that, I'm going to put it out to the people why I won't sign. And I'm going to expose the corruption that's coming from these lobbyists, and that the sponsors of this legislation, they don't even, half of them don't even know what the legislation they're sponsoring is about. Our senators and representatives are so incompetent that they just trust whatever a lobbyist brings to them in the caption is what the legislation is about, and almost none of them read the actual bill. I read the bill. I compare it to what's in Tennessee Code Annotated. I look at what they're changing, and I'm like, aha, there's the corruption. Here's what they're trying to do. And I'll put it out to the people. So short term, the solution for this is I'm going to veto it, but I'm going to put it out to the people, and I'm going to ask the people to call their senator, call their representative, and instruct them not to override my veto. I will shut down special interest lobbying legislation while I'm in office, and I will show the people how to shut it down when I'm gone.
All right. Good deal. All right. Third question is, how do we fix the deep-rooted administrative state in Nashville? How would you go about it as governor to fix that? You know, that all these departments down there, they're just, you know, if somebody's against them, they'll say, well, we'll just keep doing what we're doing. We'll be here when they're gone. How would you address that as governor?
You know, I was just looking at the state budget today, and I go through and I browse it occasionally. For example, in the 2022-2023 budget, they're adding 5,000 new attorneys, as they call them, as volunteers for CASA. That's a child advocacy attorney that the court appoints to represent a child, usually for the state, to kidnap the child under color of law and then traffic them through the foster care system to make money off of that. But there's a budget. I don't remember it off the top of my head. I think it was like $15 million or something that they're budgeting for this. The governor has the power of line item veto in the budget. So I will go through and scratch that out. They also have budgets in there for compensation raises, for new positions that they want to add. I'm a financial professional. I am going to go through not just the budget, I'm going to go through the ledgers of these agencies. And when you understand me as a financial professional, I am a machine. Like, I hardly need to sleep. When I get excited about going through financial documents, I will stay up and work weekends. I will work nights as long as I have to, until I have a clear understanding of everything they're trying to shove through there. So this is how you start cutting the bureaucracy, is you start cutting the money that feeds the bureaucracy. Those new positions, let's eliminate those new positions first, and let's start cutting back on some of these things. So I will put a challenge back to the General Assembly. No, not only are we not going to add these new 5,000 CASA attorneys, we're going to cut 1,000 of the ones that we already got, and we're going to go back over to Health and Human Services and Department of Children's Services under that cabinet, and we're going to start cutting some of those guys to keep them from stealing children. But that's how we do it, is through the money.
Yeah. Cut off the funding for it. Yeah. Kind of like we need to do with the IRS.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. Over the past 2 years, now, you know, I have a private job that I'm in the workforce. I work a 45 hour a week job, and see a lot of people that have dealt with this. You've seen it on the news, healthcare workers and stuff losing their jobs. As governor, how would you go about addressing federal mandates and these employers that have pushed these mandates as far as vaccines and stuff on employers and employees?
This is a great question. Everything that happened during the pandemic was unlawful under the Tennessee Constitution. Now, in the Tennessee Constitution, I think Article 3 establishes the executive branch. I might have it mixed up, but supreme executive power is vested in the governor. That's Article 1 under the executive branch. Supreme executive power is vested in the governor. What's executive power? Black's Law Dictionary definition of executive power is the power to bring the law into effect. That's what supreme executive power is. It's the power to bring the law into effect. So let me share my screen and show you the Constitution. This Constitution, I say this many times, this Constitution is our shield and our armor. It protects us against the government. And it's also our sword. The Declaration of Rights in here is our sword. It's how we fight back against government. So in the Tennessee Constitution, this is Article 1, Declaration of Rights. And you have to go back and understand this, but they say martial law. Now, the definition of martial law is control of civilians on domestic territory. And that's what mandates are. They're control of civilians on domestic territory. Martial law in the sense of unrestricted power of military officers or others. So in the sense of unrestricted power, that means there's no legislative process going through committees, being discussed on the floor of the houses. There's no veto check and balance of power. That's what unrestricted power is. That's a mayor or a county executive telling you to put a face diaper on, to clothe your face. That's what unrestricted power is. They're exercising power that isn't gone through any kind of legislative process without any check or balance of power. or others. So it's not just military officers, it's or others. That's the county executives, the Board of Education, the county school boards, the mayors, everybody who unlawfully exercised power is or others.
Let me interrupt you there for a minute. What about the metropolitan areas that the health departments even had say over the mayors?
Same thing, they're or others.
Right.
Now here, let's get to the important part. To dispose of the person's liberties or property. So a liberty is whether I want to clothe my face or not, or whether I want to accept medical treatment or not, is inconsistent. It is inconsistent with the principles of free government and is not confided to any department of this state. Now, because it's not confided to any department, the legislature cannot grant that emergency powers to the governor, to the health department, or to anyone else. You can't grant power that has not been delegated in the Constitution. It is unlawful. It is repugnant to the Tennessee Constitution, what our government did to us during the pandemic. Now what do we do about federal overreach? The answer to federal overreach is the state right of nullification. Now, where this rose out of was, I think it was the Anti-Insurrection Act that Congress passed and said, you can't talk bad about government. Well, Jefferson, it was Jefferson in the Kentucky resolutions and Madison in the Virginia resolutions. Their response was for any who had exercised power outside the compact, then voting them out of office is the remedy. But when that conduct outside the conduct or outside the compact creates an injustice that is unfair, nullification is the proper remedy. That without the right of nullification, the states would be under the absolute dominion, unlimited, of anyone who would exercise that power for them. That's almost an exact quote from Thomas Jefferson in the Kentucky resolutions in 1799. Now, I'm not just whistling Dixie on this. South Carolina exercised, I have a copy of it on my computer. South Carolina exercised the right of nullification in response to federal tariffs. And in addition to that, when I posted, it wasn't long after I posted about the right of nullification as the remedy to federal overreach of vaccine mandates, Speaker Sexton, Cameron Sexton, the current Speaker of the Tennessee House of Representatives, sponsored a bill that if the governor or if the attorney general certifies that federal government conduct, rule, or law is repugnant to the Constitution, that the governor has the power to nullify it. So I'm not just whistling Dixie on this one. The Speaker of the House has put forth legislation, probably because he heard it from me, that we need to reassert the state right of nullification as the solution to federal overreach and injustice upon the people of Tennessee. Now, the part that Sexton got wrong, the right of nullification is the power of the legislature, representative of the people. Sexton's a coward, and he's trying to legislate to give that power to the governor so that he can cover his butt in the legislature and not have to stand up himself like a little coward in there because Sexton is corrupt and won't allow petitions to be orally addressed to the body. And I come out and I clearly say he's corrupt, and I would challenge Speaker Sexton to bring a liability or slander lawsuit against me, I dare you to do it in court, Sexton, if this happens to get to you. But this right is not for the governor. It is for the legislature, representative of the people, and it's how we stop federal overreach.
Okay. Number 5 is, we know that we have an issue with a broken education system here, public education, and we're seeing more and more private schools pop up in every county just about. And guess where the legislators' kids go? Private schools. So as a governor, how would you try to address the broken education system and try to fix it?
There's a number of things that we need to do. Number one, the standardized testing needs to go. It stresses out the teachers. It stresses out the students. It costs us a tremendous amount of money. It needs to go away. It hasn't worked for decades. It isn't working. Our education system has not improved as a result. It's gone downhill. It's a waste of money. Standardized testing needs to go away. Number two, we throw so much garbage into the curriculum of our children about wellness or society and all this other garbage. They need to teach science of government, civics. They need to teach math and science and language and stick to it. You know, I saw it's probably going to come to Tennessee. They're doing it in Kentucky right now. They're doing a wellness check for 4th graders where a little cartoon comes up. How are you feeling today? Are you happy? Are you sad? And depending on the emoji that a 9-10-year-old child clicks, it says, oh, are you having trouble at home? Is everything okay at home? And what this is that's a scam to use the schools as a pipeline to child protective services so that the children can be trafficked through the foster care system so the state can make millions of dollars off of it. But there's a lot in the curriculum that needs to go away. It's around, you know, societal behavior, all that garbage. It needs to go away. They need to stick to a basic curriculum: language, science of government, civics, math, science, and language skills. They need to stick to that. Most importantly, and George Washington said this to the Congress. He said, what species of knowledge is equally important than teaching the science of government to the future guardians of liberty? And there is not a school in this state, and I don't think across this country, at any level, elementary, middle school, high school, community college, four-year college, grad school, law school, there is not a single school teaching our Tennessee Constitution. And that's why our people don't know that they have the right of remonstrance. They don't know that they have a right to reform government. They don't even know what our form of government is, because they have been kept ignorant by a broken, corrupt education system. The teachers, most all of them, are exceptional. They care. Their hands are tied.
Right.
You know, we got some in there that want to get on with a liberal agenda, school teachers in our schools, but most of them here in Tennessee are excellent teachers. And we saw Bill Lee didn't stand up for our educators out there. So one thing I'll do is to stand up to our educators, for our teachers on the front line teaching our students.
Yeah. Okay. You're right. And I don't even think that there's many schools, especially in the public school system, that even teach the Declaration of Independence anymore. And, you know, and that's the apple of gold.
Yeah, that is literally the breakdown.
Yeah.
Is that people, when I go out and speak, I'm like, how many people know we have a state constitution? About half the hands go up. half the people don't know we have a state constitution.
Right.
And that state constitution, it is superior to the federal constitution in every regard.
Yeah.
It is a superior document.
Many people don't even realize that they have city and county charters. You know, so, but you're right. That they're not teaching civics or anything like that anymore, and it's sad. And it's by design. That's why we're where we're at now. Let's talk about corporate welfare. We all know of the $900+ million that was given to Ford, you know, in West Tennessee. All of the money that is given away here by the state of Tennessee, and they do it in the name of bringing jobs. And, you know, yet our education system, they say we don't have money to pay your teachers good raises. Our Tennessee, we had gas tax increase and our roads are terrible, but we always have money for corporate welfare. Address how you would take care of that, or how you would address that as governor.
Well, I have stated many times, I have a closed door to any special interest. Literally, I don't care what your special interest is, even if it's a good one. I don't care to hear it. I only care to hear what comes from the people. That's it. So I'm not going to, as governor, I'm not going to involve myself, first of all, with anything like this Blue Oval City garbage that they shove down our throats. You know, bringing jobs to Tennessee is a good thing, but we don't need to spend tens of millions of dollars to incentivize businesses to come here. What incentivizes business to come here is the lack of tort litigation against businesses. That's how you stop it, is by eliminating the legislation that makes it business unfriendly. And that's a lot of our legislation that goes through there is the attorney, the legal profession just use it. They use the legislative process like a business offering a new product line. The attorneys get in there and they legislate and they create new torts for themselves so that somebody can get sued and they have to hire an attorney to defend themselves. That's what a lot of that is going on through there. We can incentivize businesses to come here. We have a hardworking people here in Tennessee. We have one of the best infrastructure in this company, with a north-south interstate and an east-west interstate. Tennessee is a major artery for distribution.
Yep.
And I would look at other things. You know, nobody's talking about building up the infrastructure of Tennessee to make it more welcoming for businesses. You know, I don't want to get rid of fossil fuels, but we need to diversify energy. Our electrical grid is already strained. And if we continue with a population growth without diversifying for energy, we're going to be strained just like Texas is. I think that we could expand the port in Memphis, that we can dredge and work with other states as well as the federal government, and we could turn Memphis into a deep water port and cut distribution costs tremendously. And nobody's talking about infrastructure like this. We have minerals and oil here in Tennessee, and nothing is being facilitated for our infrastructure in these regards. So we don't need to incentivize. And I can tell you, this Blue Oval City, what the heck did Ford ever do for Detroit? Because that city has gone down the drain. That government of Michigan is destroyed, and Ford has been a part of that with their whole union thing that they're trying to drive here in Tennessee. So no, I will not engage with special interests like that. We can incentivize business to come here smart ways. We don't need to pay them for jobs to come here.
Okay. Uh, yeah, I was thinking about that the other day. If you look at, not just Ford, but GM and Chrysler up in Michigan and, Detroit and all of that around there, and you look and see what's happened up there, man, they talk about don't California my Tennessee, don't Detroit my Tennessee, and that's how it starts.
And that's exactly what they're doing. Do you know that there are 4 amendments going to be on the Tennessee Constitution are going to be in ballot in November? Did you know that?
I've seen where some posts and emails had come out on that.
It's starting. They're starting to talk about it now. Nobody has been talking about it until I started talking about it, and I started advertising it out to the people. And now they're one of those amendments. It's called right to work. That right to work is tricky attorney language. It is pro-union. It is absolutely pro-union, and it is not good. Bill Lee is pushing it. We don't need it. We haven't had it since 1870, and we don't need it now.
Okay. We'll have to look at that because we're a right to work state.
Exactly. And what this does is it ties the hands of business and says, we're not right to work anymore.
That's not good.
No, it is not good.
No.
And the process, the Constitution, Article 11, Section 3 requires that it goes through 1 congressional session, 2 years in the House, then it has to go to a 2nd congressional session. That 6 months prior to the election of the 2nd congressional session, it has to be published. And the definition of published is to make known to the public in general. And they didn't. They hid it. They concealed it. And they used a fake URL on the Secretary of State website to further conceal it and through Google search algorithms. They don't want the people to know until they're standing at the ballot. Like one of them is to prohibit slavery. And everybody's going to say, well, that's probably good. I don't want slavery. That's not what it's about. What it's about is putting inmates to work and collecting wage garnishment off the inmates.
Yeah.
About prohibiting slavery.
Right. I believe the 13th Amendment took care of that.
Do we trust government? Literally everything they trust, they screw up, right?
Well, let's see now. We have the Inflation Reduction Act.
Pretty much, literally everything, pretty much everything government touches beyond basic services like fire and police, beyond anything beyond that, they screw it up.
Right.
We really trust these guys that they're going to amend our Constitution to the good.
Right. Not going to happen. Okay. My 7th question for you is, we often hear about the 10th Amendment and returning powers back to the state, taking federal powers and bringing it back to the state. But let's talk about the state overreach of local city and county governments. It happens there just like it does at the federal level coming down to the states. We have the state imposing stuff on city and county governments. What do you think about that as a candidate for governor?
All of this work that I'm talking about, this right of nullification at the state level, this right of remonstrance, this is, my work is about y'all citizens out there. You need to step up. If you're just going to sit here and complain about government and you're not going to do anything about it, it's kind of like Justice Cooley said, if you allow these rights to be oppressed, just shut up and do what you're told. So the people have to start getting involved, especially in their local government. I'll give you a great example. Here in Sumner County, we had a largely corrupt county commission with 12 seats, and they just doubled it to 24 seats to make it harder to take over.
Right.
But a group of citizens here in Sumner County started their own their own Republican Party satellite group. It's part of the Tennessee Republican Party, and they just started putting out on social media. People started coming, and now that satellite group gets more than the established Sumner County Republican Party. More people come to this group of citizens than the one that's all ran by judges and attorneys. All the entrenched corruption, people gravitated toward it. So somebody's got to step up in the county, bring together one of these groups, and just start getting citizens to run. And these guys in this group, they worked hard. They took 13 of 24 county commission seats against incumbents.
That's fantastic. And
on the school board, they won by write-in.
Wow.
They had a candidate who announced as a Republican. The executive GOP disqualified him. And so they allowed him to run as a write-in candidate, and he defeated an incumbent as a write-in. And it came from people going out there, going door to door, supporting each other and getting it done. And we're, here in Sumner County, I believe in this group, we're going to shut down all the increases in property taxes. We're going to shut down the corruption that's going through the school board. We're going to shut them down here. I trust these guys that are taking office through this. So that's what, as governor, I can't fix everything.
Right.
What I can do is I can show you how to stand up for yourselves.
Right.
I can teach you how to fight, and I lead by example. I don't just say this is how you fight. I'm in the trenches, going to committee hearings and exposing pretended legislation as a citizen. I'm doing it, remonstrating against a corrupt judiciary as a citizen. When I remonstrated, by the way, the entire Tennessee Board of Judicial Conduct, more than a dozen corrupt judges were removed from office because of me, one man remonstrating to the General Assembly. Imagine if I did that as one man, what we can accomplish if we unite in common purpose for term limits, for election integrity, or some of the other few things that all of us agree on. And when we start doing that, we can start to set aside this tug of war of our two-party system that divides us as a people. It's like a Cold War. Yep. It really is. And the cost of that Cold War is borne by the people.
Yep.
So what my work is about is uniting the people in common purpose. And when we're united, when we start having dialogue again as a people, we can start to put aside this tug of war divisiveness that is caused by this corrupt two-party system.
Yep. One thing I do want to ask you about, we're running probably right about 50 minutes right now. In the state constitution, does it say something about attorneys or lawyers not being able to run and hold office?
That's actually a great question. It's in Article 6, Section 7, and it says, no judge shall hold any other office of trust or profit under this state or the United States. Now, that Board of Judicial Conduct I was talking about is all judges. And they not only are they corrupt, but they're in violation of the Constitution, holding expressly prohibited offices. I think, let me bring it up. I want to show you. Let me get over to screen share again here real quick. So here's Article 6, Judicial Department. The judges of the Supreme or inferior courts, they shall not be allowed any fees or perquisites of office nor hold any other office of trust or profit under this state or the United States. Now, the Constitution does not expressly prohibit attorneys,
Okay.
but it prohibits judges. And I would say that this is another constitutional amendment because attorneys are officers of the court. And this is a big problem in our legislative houses with attorneys as officers of the court, also with the court having oversight of attorneys. So we have the Tennessee Board of Professional Responsibility. It's a whole nother thing I can talk about. But the Board of Professional Responsibility was created by the Tennessee Supreme Court. The Tennessee Supreme Court can't create anything. They have the power, judicial power, assigned to them in the Constitution. And what they did when they created the Board of Professional Responsibility is they legislated. And then when they said attorneys have to pay $300 or $400 a year, they're taxing. Yep. That is legislative power unlawfully exercised by our corrupt Tennessee Supreme Court. But the problem is when you have the Tennessee Supreme Court overseeing the conduct of attorneys, now you've got legislators beholding to the judiciary. It's a major breakdown.
Yes.
It's a major, major breakdown. And so what we need to do is separate the judiciary from overseeing the legislative profession, or we need to prohibit the legal profession, or we need to prohibit the legal profession from having seats in the General Assembly if their licensure is controlled by the judiciary. You know, this whole thing with judges holding prohibited offices, it's a whole nother topic we could do another show on.
Right.
But it is literally the root of corruption in this state, judges holding prohibited offices. And it's an unlawful alteration of our form of government. And there is nobody besides me that has the courage to stand up to these corrupt judges like Justice Bivens and the new justice of the Tennessee Supreme Court. You're both corrupt, holding prohibited offices, and you know you are. And I would dare you guys again to come after me for libel or slander. I'll take my chances with the jury.
Okay. All right. I think that's all the questions that I have for you. Like I said, we're getting close to 55 minutes now, so I'll let you go ahead and finish up with what you want to say, and then we'll end this thing.
Well, I hope that the viewers on here, first of all, I appreciate y'all taking time. I know I'm long-winded. I got a lot of knowledge to share with you guys and to teach you how to fight for yourselves. And if you guys don't want to fight for yourselves, put me in office and I'll fight for you. I was a Force Recon Marine for 8 years, and I know how to fight, and I fight hard. I've already been, you go to look at my YouTube channel, and you can find that through my social media page on Facebook. It's at Gentry for the People. Or my website, wethepeopleD50.com. If you just Google John Gentry for Tennessee governor, you'll find all my social media. And you can go witness me fighting in our courts, fighting in our legislative houses, and I'm doing it as a citizen. So give me the power to fight for you as governor, and you will see a healing of our people as has not occurred since we declared independence. So thank you guys for taking time, and go look John Gentry for Governor Tennessee on Google, and you'll find all my social media on there. I write prolifically, and I evidence all my work on the YouTube channel. Thank you guys.
Well, thank you again, John, for coming on and doing this interview. I really appreciate it, and I think the viewers will appreciate it as well. And you gave a lot of answers here. You know, it's hard to get all the questions in, but this is what I come up with. So I appreciate you doing that. And as I said before, share this information, get it out to the public, and let's have a dialogue of what needs to happen. That's the problem. People don't want to talk about things anymore. They want to be over here in the Democratic Party, or they want to be in the Republican Party, and they don't want to talk issues. They want to vote party, and that's it. Let's vote on issues. Let's talk issues. And so, as I said, follow me on Facebook, Charles Cook, and YouTube and Rumble at Charles Cook 52. And John, please stay on the line here when I end this, and we'll catch you all again. Please share this and get the information out. Thank you, and have a great day.
God bless all.